When it comes to media, be it books, movies, TV shows, even video games, nothing hurts more than watching your favorite franchise be reduced to a wretched shade of its former self. I bet you have an example or two you can think of. The new writers didn't understand what made the original work. Maybe the execs got a bit too heavy-handed during the production cycle. Oh, if you're especially unlucky, you get a bastardized follow-up game that exists entirely to try and monetize its player base to exceptionally predatory microtransactions and just downright immoral game design choices. Wait, Diablo Immortal came out recently, didn't it? We're gonna talk about Ni no Kuni Crossworlds. My first experience with Ni no Kuni was through an article in the August 2010 issue of Nintendo Power, back when it was still slated for a DS release in the West. Since that never ended up happening, I didn't hear anything about Ni no Kuni for 3 years until Wrath of the White Witch released on PS3 in 2013. Ironically, I would not own a PS3 until around 2015, and didn't have a chance to play Ni no Kuni until later that year. I'll be honest, hearing Ni no Kuni 2 get announced just months after finally finishing the first game was a little bit astounding. Oh, what a fantastic coincidence, I couldn't wait to play the sequel to such a great RPG. I have not yet played Ni no Kuni 2. It's on my to playlist for sure, but as a lot of people know, playing RPGs means a lot of time commitment to just one game. That being said, the game is like 4 years old at this point, and I really don't have much excuse for not having played it. Regardless, I would say I'm a fan of the series. Maybe not a super fan, but a big enough fan to take considerable emotional and psychic damage when I saw this monstrosity pop up on the App Store. At first glance, Ni no Kuni Crossworlds looks like an exciting new entry in the beloved RPG-ARPG series, until you remember it's being released for mobile platforms. Then you watch the trailer and see all the characters running around and think, is this a Breath of the Wild clone? Then you remember Genshin Impact. And then, on the day of release, having had no plans of even playing the game, you learn there are plans to integrate cryptocurrency into the game. Oh, come on, man, not like this. But that, my friends, is only the start of my journey. So, join me as I chronicle my experience with the absolute disaster that is Ni no Kuni Crossworlds. So, just seconds ago, I mentioned that I had actually not had any intention of playing this game. What's up with that? I mean, that's true, but then I learned kind of the day of launch that there was a PC version that was coming out simultaneously with the mobile release, and, free content is free content, so here we go! Starting up the game, I was met with this lovely little title screen with an upscaled static image featuring the 5 playable characters standing in front of the starting city of Evermore. I know this version of the game is a rushed port of the mobile version, but this is so crusty. You can see the artifacting all over the screen. It's honestly horrendous. And what's the deal with the title screen not being animated? Like, for what reason? If it was a static piece of artwork made specifically for the title, I would have zero complaints, but this just looks cheap. Trying to check out the options reveals 2 unique aspects of the game. First, I seemingly have no options to pick from, something that I'll get into in just a moment. And secondly, all of the menus are controlled by clicking and dragging, as if it was a touchscreen. I feel like I should have seen this coming, honestly, but it just feels bad. Trying to start the game opens a login screen. Yeah, pretty normal fare, I guess. Until you realize that there hasn't been an option to create an account. Not on the game's website, not in the launcher, and certainly not when I try to start the game here. Try poking around the game site, and it's, nothing. Nothing at all. Good half an hour wasted. Turning to the internet, I quickly learned that the only method of making an account is through the mobile version of the game. Why? For what reason? Time to download the mobile client, I guess. Unfortunately, I didn't have any way to capture the footage of this game on my phone, which is code for I didn't feel like the game deserved that much of my effort, so instead I'll put up some funny MS Paint drawings of what I saw while playing. Booting up the game, I was met with the exact same login screen, this time without artifacting because the JPEG is actually the right resolution. Tapping the screen just goes right into the game this time and presents me with 5 playable characters. I decided that it'd be a little bit too much to be creative and try something actually interesting, so I went with the default swordsman because he's a guy with a sword. And I actually think his coat-cape combo is kind of fun. After getting in and picking the right body scales and colors, I learned that the cool over-the-shoulder coat that I just said I wanted isn't actually the default character outfit, but instead you have to wear this weird Squire outfit. I don't know, I guess you're a new adventurer, but it looks really lame compared to what you made your character in, so whatever. I finalized my character and get into the game. The game starts with this weird limbo space with our character standing before this unknown girl. she says some cryptic stuff and starts up the exposition machine before, like, panicking, and then she just kind of kicks us out. Then we're, like, thrown into the kind of thick of it. There's, like, this city, and it's being ransacked, and it's in, like, a war or something, and there's this, like, dragon flying around and lighting everything on fire. And we see this woman in all white on the ground. She, like, looks like she's been fighting someone, and then there's this big guy in lion armor, and it's all, like, dark and edgy looking. And then, like, there's some cutscene of, like, your player character, and he's, like, swinging a sword, and then the dragon drops a pillar on him, and you have to swipe once to dodge out of the way, and wow, here we are in the game. I immediately open the menu. From here, I can create an account for the game and then sync with my mobile data. Now I close the mobile client, uninstall the game, and log in on my PC. With that finally out of the way, I can start playing the... That is an update. That's an update. Couldn't have done this earlier, had to wait until I synced the game. Couldn't have done it from the launcher. It's an update. Okay. For the first little bit, it plays the animated opening for the game, which, you know, it looks pretty. It's Ghibli animation, can't complain. But, like, after that, it's just the same 5 character art pieces for the next 40 minutes. Finally, after so much time and effort, we're able to play the game. Here we are. Everything's on fire. The first thing I tried doing is moving around. Standard WASD movement. But there's, like, something weird about the camera. It's just, like, bad. It's hard to describe. It's got click and drag camera movement, not unlike other MMOs, but there's just something sluggish about it. I pop open the settings and I'm greeted with a ton more options than earlier. It seems the game will only let you change settings once you're in the game. It's not that unusual, but a bit frustrating nonetheless. Funnily enough, changing the camera mode just seems to change the distance away from the character. Closing the menu, I take like 3 steps and I'm immediately attacked by the dragon, and those poor saps just don't exist anymore. I continue on as the game presents my first combat encounter, some dragon people. Combat in Ni no Kuni Cross Worlds is not great. You have these mobile game skill icons in the bottom right, you press to attack, and then just kind of swing at enemies and wait for them to die. While your 3 special skills are actually bound to key bindings, the main attack button isn't. So, to attack enemies, you have to kind of spam click it. This wouldn't be the worst if you could left click anywhere on the screen to attack, while right click move the camera around, but with the button being so out of the way, it's really hard to do both. Specials are fine enough, if a bit hard to aim at times, otherwise they're kinda neat to look at. You'll see it later, but all weapon attacks leave behind a slashing effect that's colored after the element that the weapon is doing. Oh, right. This game has the seemingly standardized elemental weapon triangle of red, green, blue, plus yellow and purple on the side that is seen in a lot of mobile games. In the end, however, all this information is pretty much worthless because of a revelation I have in just a little bit that will render all of this meaningless. Walking a few steps further, we get a cutscene. Evil armor dude has defeated good magic lady and wants the MacGuffin. You know, the voice acting in this game isn't actually that bad. The animal companion gets a bit annoying, but these two are pretty cool. Our character runs into the room and the lady kind of sends this blue magic crystal at us while casually entrusting the fate of the world to this guy. The bad dude understandably gets pissed at the tropic fantasy plot, and whoa, hold up, he's actually going for it. He's getting kind of close to. No way, he's actually going to get to. Oh no! What the fuck? I will never feel safe around this creature ever again. Finally, we're dropped into the game world itself. That thing tells us we should go to Evermore, and we set off. The first thing I notice is I have dedicated jump and dodge buttons, which are thankfully mapped to space and shift, respectively. Unfortunately, jumping in this game feels terrible, much like many other things. I mean, what is that? And then I realized dodge rolling has a substantial cooldown, which means that this leisurely jog is pretty much our top movement speed. This entire game's movement feels like it's getting slowly dragged along on wires. It's so floaty and restrictive feeling. While I'm running around, I find this grass, and the game prompts me to kick it. For some reason. Upon doing so, he appears. This is possibly the highest moment in my entire time playing the game, this funny little fella right here, peak of the entire game. As I continue, I pass through a glade full of higgledies, the little guys from Ni no Kuni 2. I'm starting to think this game really only has nostalgia going for it. Passing through a loading tunnel, we get another cutscene. There's this little platypus guy. We follow him through that area and get attacked by a bunch of goopy guys with weird masks. One of the monsters goes to attack the funny animal character, and some girl shows up and blasts it with magic, then says to leave it to her. I then proceed to defeat all the enemies almost single-handedly as she just kind of flails her wand around. Oh, and the vile heart from the first Ni no Kuni just kind of floats in, one of the penultimate bosses of the original game. Oh man, this game's gonna be one giant acid flip, isn't it? There is a positive part about Vile Heart. My bad. Chaotic Mass. With this first boss, we get to see some actual combat mechanics, although they're just simple circle and cone AoEs. It is nice to have something to look at while fighting, though. There's honestly some pretty good visual work with these things. They're bright red, so they're super easy to see, and they also have this cool little, filling up animation that plays while the boss winds up its attack. Now, this doesn't seem like very much. In fact, it's pretty much the bare minimum, but, at least they bothered to include some semblance of boss mechanics. Now, the problem comes from where we're fighting the boss. This purple grass has a really bad habit of obscuring the AoE indicators, which kind of undoes any visual work you've done to make them look nice and easy to read. Having defeated the chaotic mass, the girl introduces herself as Chloe and reveals that she's a player. Oh, right, that might be an important part of the game's story. The game world we're playing in is supposedly a new VR game created by a group called the Mirai? It doesn't matter. Some evil corporation. That being said, she really only cares about teasing Clue, so we don't get much about her besides that she seems obsessed with shiny things. Neat. The fuzzy little guy, Platypaws, great name by the way, really do like that, asks us to take this shiny egg thing to Great Uncle Autumn, some important guy, since it's supposedly about to hatch. Oh, hey, there he is. A much different take on the talking tree compared to Old Father Oak from the first game. We talked to the tree for a sec, and he offhandedly mentioned something about children with two souls, but, that's not important. Shut up. Who cares? Have some funny higgledies. Take the familiar and fuck. Now that that's done with, off to Evermore. I'll just start walking over here and... I think I might be lost. Well, might as well explore a bit. Right, this might be a good time to talk about two important things. First off, the game renders things really stupidly. Certain details around the map are rendered in as soon as you load in the area, but other things like grass and NPC only load in when you get close to them. Now, this is important for conserving resource and preventing slowdown and lag, but the draw distance is a couple yards tops. Watch, when I walk up the stairs, you can see the NPC just kind of pop into reality. The second, and maybe more important piece of information, have you noticed that this is an MMO yet? When I first heard about the game from, what the trailer showed off, it looked like a Breath of the Wild clone with a Ghibli approach to the world and characters. It's a third-person mobile MMO. Look, I'll admit that's on me for not doing my research prior to playing the game, but the promotional trailer really didn't give me much reason to think the game would be an MMO, of all things. This also creates a very interesting predicament for Cross Worlds. Now it's going to be compared to all the other MMOs currently available, whether it wants to or not. At this point, I've hit a literal wall, and I decided it'd be a good idea to carry on with the main story. I checked the map, and I am very far away. Now, in most MMOs, you just click this little quest thingy under the quest list, and it would mark the quest as a priority thing. Normal stuff. Maybe put a map marker on your minimap, or even a little visual indicator on the screen to see where you need to go next. Ni no Kuni Cross Worlds takes that to the next level. Upon clicking on a quest, or tapping if you are on mobile, your character starts to walk towards the objective entirely on their own. You don't even have to do anything. The game plays itself. What a design choice. You remember that comment I made earlier about nothing about the game's combat mattering and it's all meaningless? Yeah, so not only does the game auto-path you to quest markers, if a quest involves combat to any degree, the game will fight the enemies for you. It'll use your specials as soon as they come up. 8 times out of 10, the game will literally just keep playing itself. I'm being dead serious right now. For the majority of the rest of this video, the game will be on autopilot, except for when I'm clicking through dialogue or menus. Walking to quests, game's doing itself. Fighting enemies, game's doing itself. Initiating dialogue, game's doing it itself. I cannot, for the life of me, understand why anyone would think this is a good design choice. I can sort of understand having an autoplay feature to replay levels you've already cleared, or to grind for loot, or something, but I'd only expect that from the most tedious of garbage gacha games. Fundamentally, the problem with allowing a game to auto its way through most of the content is that the player isn't actually playing the game. And then you just get bored. There's nothing to do. You get bored and you drop the game. Oh no, I'm spoiling the end of the video. Oh, hey, look, it's time for the game title. Anyways, welcome to Evermore, the main hub city or something. I'm not actually sure. I never visited any of the other cities. There could be more of them, I wouldn't know. Here you can see the impressive animation budget at work. Look at them go! As soon as the cutscene ends, Chloe, she just kind of leaves. Or something. Yeah, bye. Our next task, as posed by Clue, is to go and speak to the king. But before that, have you forgotten that this game is a mobile game? I hope not, because it's time for the deluge of menus and notifications with little to no explanation or meaning. I'll be honest, this happened a lot. There are at least 5 instances where I just got hit with a flood of notifications. I had to stop what I was doing to clear them away. There's nothing that says in-game immersion like cleaning out your email spam folder. As I check the mail tab, I catch sight of the face of the devil himself. Gotcha tickets. I'm not really sure what I expected, but now I know there's some sort of summon system and you can bet it uses real money. I slap on this ridiculous costume and head off to see the king. When I get there, I'm told I need some sort of identification and they won't let me through without one. I mean, fair enough. Clue decides it'd be easiest to get a mercenary permit from Swift Solutions, so I head off in search of it. Along the way, I spot a crowd of people outside of an equipment shop that I'm unable to access due to quest progress. When I get to the quest objective, I talk to the attendant, Bert, who tells me he won't give me any quests because I look like an outsider and he's had a lot of trouble with outsiders recently. Well, that's nice. Now what? Bert tells us the best course of action would be to raise our standing in the city so people are more likely to trust us, which means doing quests for NPCs. Okay, whatever. And then the game pulls back the curtain. Haha, these aren't just any old quests. These are reputation quests. Oh, as it just so happens, the majority of the game's main story is occasionally gated by these reputation quests. So you play the story, eventually you'll be told you aren't trustworthy enough and sent back here to grind rep. And did I mention that these quests are on a timed cooldown? When I stated that I wasn't expecting this game to be an MMO, that's one thing. But I sure as hell wasn't expecting to be told to go grind rep. Why on earth would you make a game built around rep grinding in 2021? Now, understanding what I've got ahead of me, I just kind of let the game autopilot itself. And I just sit around and wait till dialogue happens. Run into a few vendors, other town NPCs, I don't know, it's boring, I don't care. Look, I know that it's kind of an MMO staple to make you do meaningless fetch quests and pick up garbage and do tasks for people. But there's something about knowing that you're grinding out reputation that just makes it feel so much worse. It's like I'm doing chores instead of playing a game, like, geez, Bert, sorry I forgot to take out the garbage, let me just go do that. Eventually I run to a side quest that has me talking to this guy called the Box Genie. It's a genie trapped in a box. Who would have guessed? He's been getting regularly harassed and is convinced it's the work of the Urn Genie. I bet you can assume what his deal is. We're tasked with kicking some urns to show the Urn Genie who's boss. Because of course. After causing some property damage, we head back to the Box Genie, only to find out he is being attacked by someone. When we round the corner, we see 2 random adventurers attacking him. Or, well, his box. We quickly learn that despite the Box Genie assuming these 2 are the Urn Genie's minions, they're actually other players? Not like real players, like NPC players. They attack us assuming we're some sort of in-game encounter, and I just sort of let the game obliterate the 2 of them. They complain that the encounter is unbalanced and run away. At this point, I do not care about anything related to the Box Genie or any of the side quests. The whole premise of the players, quotations, running around a world that doesn't understand what them being players means is the most interesting thing. somehow the NPCs not only react to the player's actions, they even like change their opinion, and they've adapted this anti-foreigner stance due to player harassment. It's really interesting, and I am interested to see where this plot goes. Anyways, time for login rewards. Seemingly without warning, the game just hits me with a million more notifications. I don't know what any of them are, what they do, and it's kind of disorienting. After I wade my way through the flashy menus and some item and equipment tutorials that just kind of show up and don't go away, I'm directed to finally go and try to speak with the king. So that doesn't happen, and instead I'm tasked with helping a guard deal with some troublesome adventurers. When we finally make it to the front gate, we see a group of 3 players trying to actively PvP in the middle of the town square. Checks out. They get pissed at us for interrupting them, and we fight. I let the game beat them, and it's back to doing menial tasks for Bert. When I got back to the quest, however, he sends me straight to the cat shop to pick up some fresh coffee. Oh, don't forget though, it's only free this time! Escaping the monetization, I head out into the field area from earlier. Now I'm supposed to go to that town I randomly stumbled into. This time, however, the zone has a bunch of actual players, like real other players, not the NPCs. And it's got some random enemies. I reached the town only to realize I was supposed to stop by the big tree guy on the way, and so I turned auto-pathing back on. This is what I get for trying to play the game. The tree wants me to help clear the forest of corruption, so I let the game take me there. I find platypaws and a big spooky machine, which is conveniently unguarded. I break it, and then the game walks me back to the tree. After I tell him I broke the machine, he just kind of banishes me to the gotcha dimension and forces me to roll on a new familiar. That's right, you heard that correctly. Familiars, which you tamed akin to Pokemon in the original Ni no Kuni, are now something you can only get through the gotcha system. The first pull is free and guarantees a high rarity familiar, and it's not like I have much of a choice, so I roll. Honestly, what I get doesn't matter. This beginner banner lets me roll infinitely until I get the results I want, so I can just keep trying. I gotta say it though, I really do not like that they're using the NPC Solomon from the original Ni no Kuni as a way to drum up nostalgia for this gotcha. It's making me mad. It's making me angry. It's gross. Additionally, I think it's very important to mention that not only is this gotcha system used to get new familiars, but equipment and character costumes. In fact, most everything in the game is RNG based. I'm not really sure why I ever expected otherwise, but I am disappointed nonetheless. After re-rolling a few times, I decided to take the might because, I don't know, I'll play into the nostalgia, whatever. I move on with the game. I clear away another deluge of notifications and finally head to the town of Zephyr Station to help the mayor with menial tasks. What follows is menial tasks. Oh, and I guess Chloe's there, and then she's not. Eventually we're tasked with clearing out some monsters in a well that connects to the main city. Actually, it connects to the castle for some reason, but we'll learn that very soon. This is the game's first dungeon, except that I lied. It's not. It's just another zone with enemies in it. It just pretends to be a dungeon. It doesn't matter. Who cares? As I'm heading towards the instance, I spot him. The Chosen One, fated to defeat the Dark Lord and bring peace to this god-forsaken MMO. Morbin time. Seeing this catboy run past me and into the dungeon, I came to a profound understanding. This moment was the peak of my experience playing Ni no Kuni Cross Worlds. Nothing the game could provide me would ever top seeing this random player running past me. Something about this dungeon feels super familiar. I can't quite put my finger on it. I don't want to say it's reused from one of the earlier Ni no Kuni games, but it really feels like it. As we progress further down the well, we hear voices. It appears the king has been kidnapped by some random dudes in Plague Doctor cosplay. Being lawful good, we jump in and understandably get monsters sicked on us. We just let the game do its thing, win, and escort the king back to the castle. Hey, well that solves our problem about getting an audience. When we get to the castle, the captain of the guard is surprised both that we got into the castle and that we have the king with us. As per MMO fashion, now that we've helped the king once, we are now best friends and working with the guard. They give us a cool new costume piece and send us out on our first task, searching around town for more of the guys who kidnapped the king. I head into the town square, see a meaningless cutscene, and I'm then informed I need to grind rep to grade 2. Exhausted, I decide to call it for the day, making the worst mistake of my life. Upon logging back in the next day, I'm beset by a million login notifications and bonuses. I literally didn't have time to hit capture before getting swarmed by pop-ups. After fending off the attempts at my wallet, I finally resume... Right. Ugh. The current rep grind side quests are pretty uneventful. Mostly go to location A and deliver item B. There was one quest, however, that rewards players with a cosmetic hat from one of the 3 shops in town. Your options for completion are either a crow hat, owl hat, or whatever the bird that represents Swift Solutions is. Now, in most games, you'd get to pick which of the hats you want. But here, the game just decides to give you a random one, for no reason. In fact, this is another reminder that everything in this game is randomized. We get sent to craft weapon at the weapon shop, and it randomizes everything about the weapon except for, like, the fact that it's a sword. Everything has to be a loot box here, doesn't it? Lucky for me, I got the hat I wanted, which is the crow hat. I put it on, looked goofy, and I just let my character go off to grind rep. Eventually I hit grade 2 and I'm allowed to continue the main story. I set off to find the spooky masked guys and pretty much just watched my character aimlessly wander around town, checking up on false leads. Eventually I found one of the guys off by the waterfront. He freaks out, runs, and I chase after him. As I give chase, the game decides it's time to hit me with a progression thing. Man, they just want me to spend more money. I close out, and I'm worried that I somehow aren't autopiloting, but in case you were worried, my guy's still going. We finally reach the town square, and that guy we're chasing spins around and says something spooky, and some purple fog rolls in, and then there's like monsters everywhere. I let the game fight itself for a little bit, and eventually the first boss from Ni no Kuni 1 shows up, all nice and reskinned for cost-saving measures. And alongside him, the Captain of the Royal Guard, who destroys him and just, who needs agency anyways. Luckily, the game lets me get a few hits in before she steals all the glory, but before I'm even able to do that, the game decides it's time to teach me about boss mechanics. You know those things I talked about at the very beginning of the... never mind. We defeat the boss, and the town is very happy. So happy, in fact, that they forget I exist, and the Captain of the Royal Guard gets all the credit. At least she recognizes my help. Back at the castle, the captain decides that it's time to tell the king what to do, and then we decide to go check up on one of the 5 World Keepers, the elemental guardians that protect the balance of the world. How creative. Back in the first field zone, we make our way to Zephyr Station. There's probably some kind of quirky dialogue going on between the characters, but I just don't care at this point. We eventually bump into Platypus, who says something about monsters attacking? The game kills those for us, and we head off to check on Natrum, the guardian of the Earth. This part of the forest has been corrupted by the masked guy's evil chaos machines. This pretty much just means a slightly different color palette for the zone and some new enemy designs. Eventually we reach the deepest part of the zone and find this big world boss guy. There's a cutscene where they talk about how scary he is and then gives me a big orange circle to show his aggro radius. After walking around the big monster, we make it to the portal to Natrum's nest. See, now this is the real first dungeon. You'll notice it's the first dungeon because it isn't a dungeon. Anyway, there's these purple crystals and they're scary, and the cast is scared about the World Keeper. But the road is blocked, so we can't go forward. Luckily for us, the game auto-paths me to the quest objective, like usual. When I get there, however, I run into the weird girl from the very beginning of the game. She pulls us back into her limbo space and starts spouting exposition. Supposedly, the in-game world of Ni no Kuni isn't actually a VR game created by that evil corporation, but instead a parallel world, a la Ni no Kuni 1. What the corporation has actually done is create a system in which people can enter and control the body of their soulmates, a version of themselves from a parallel world. Which is, like, super fucked up if you think about it. Because, like, one day your, like, family member is just themselves, and the next they're spouting off Reddit memes. The girl mutters some techno-babble reason for why we can't stick around, assures us she'll keep looking into things, and just boots us back into wherever the heck we just were. I don't know. While this semblance of some kind of deeper narrative is kind of interesting, it's very clear that any kind of progression regarding it is going to be catastrophically slow and just not worth having any interest in. The way forward in the dungeon manifests and we're able to continue. We fight something called a Nest Guardian and finally are able to proceed to the deepest part of Natrum's nest. As we enter the deepest recesses of the nest, we finally stand face to face with the World Keeper himself, Natrum, a big green dragon. Yay! Look, I'm sorry for not being more excited, but in a game with Studio Ghibli art style, running into a pretty standard looking dragon when I'm told I'm meeting one of the world's guardians is just a little bit disappointing. Anyways, there are those evil corruption machines hanging around corrupting Natrum and stuff. We break them and he's like, "Oh no, I'm still corrupted!" Then he hits us with an exposition bomb about like the evil society that the masked guys belong to, and I gotta be honest, I just can't bring myself to care at this point. We get a cool glowing light and then run away before he gets fully corrupted. All of the NPCs are understandably upset about this whole situation, so we go back to the king and tell him what's up. When we get there, he's like worried and he wants to help us, meet with the other world keepers and go on an epic journey, and the captain of the guard literally just says, "You don't have any rights, screw you, I'm the real king, got him, Lamau." I don't know, I assume that's what she says. So we just go off on our own to find the next world keeper, and then I step outside and I'm informed that the next step of the main quest is another rep grind. As you can probably guess, this is where I decided to stop playing. By this point I had reached the state where I didn't care about anything that was going on, and no amount of great music or a pretty art direction or maybe some potential interesting plot lines can change that the game is just undeniably boring. Like I said earlier, if a game can't keep players engaged, inevitably they'll just lose interest and not want to play anymore. Fundamentally, a game that plays itself has next to no chance of keeping its audience immersed in the game world, not for any period of time that matters. For better or for worse, I doubt this game will have a very long lifespan, and it's not like the addition of cryptocurrency is going to help that. Oh, right, I forgot to get into that, didn't I? Supposedly the devs are planning on creating a cross-game crypto token that can be used in all of their different publications and eventually be redeemed for cryptocurrency. Their plan is to roll this out in 2023, which is terrible, but who's actually still going to be playing this game a year from now? I'm certainly not, and I doubt that any actual Ni no Kuni fans are going to stick around for this dumpster fire. I don't know, it just sounds kind of like one big waste of time. And that was my experience playing Ni no Kuni Cross Worlds. Bad MMO, bad mobile game, very bad port, and a bad idea for everyone involved. If you enjoyed the video, consider leaving a like. That's some good motivation for me to keep making content, and lets me know you did enjoy what you watched. And if you have thoughts, why not leave a comment? Tell me whether or not you disagree and think the game is actually somehow great. I'll be kind of sad, but you're totally entitled to it, and I do want to hear from people. And hey, the video got out on time. Well, okay, it got out before 6 months passed, so that's improvement. So if you want to see me improve more, or you just like this style of content where I talk about things that I don't like, destroying the reputation of things I do like, then consider subscribing. I'll be talking about more things later, and that could be pretty cool. Anyways, I'm gonna go perish because apparently I'm trapped in a heat dome, and summer just happens to be the greatest season of the entire year. Thanks for watching.